And welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
And of course, we are slowly working our way. Here we are. This is Genesis chapter 2. We've been doing this for a long time now. Please God, it'll be longer. With the Torah Temimah and trying to look carefully at making out what this is talking about. And here we are talking about the Garden of Eden. And what I'm deriving as we study this Torah Temimah is that in a sense, it's possible that again, this whole area here is very symbolic and metaphoric, and whether the Garden of Eden represents like a potentially ideal state of the world, and if one can speak in these kinds of terms, whether that this was sort of what God had in mind when God created the world, and the degree to which, as human beings, we managed to spoil things pretty badly. The whole idea of Eden is that it's a place of refreshment, and that the world really has that potential. There are enough resources, and it's that to make sure that everyone is pretty much happy. Yes, there are natural disasters. Those are not necessarily man-made, although there's a sense in the Torah, you read in the second paragraph of the Shema, that in many ways these are consequences of our own behavior. And the fact is that scientifically it's being shown that the way in which we have abused this world and abused its resources is creating climate change. Well, you could say that's actually foretold in the Torah, that our behavior can affect the climate of this world. Whether it affects earthquakes and things like that I don't know. I know that,
Well, there is a theory that fracking contributes to the prevalence and intensity of earthquakes.
Cool. Thank you, Lauren. So, but my point though is that this Garden of Eden idea is that potential to really, that life can be this kind of semi-paradise. And something that has saddened me is the fact that in so many ways we live lives that are very, very comfortable, especially compared to previous generations, and certainly in America, in the United States. A great number of us live very, very comfortable lives, and the rest of the world lives lives that are not very comfortable at all, and in fact are struggling very, very deeply, are working very, very hard, etc. And on our part, instead of saying these are blessings and being filled with gratitude for these things and for most of the life, instead we run away from the one who makes all these things possible. And the fact that we don't look at life in a transcendent kind of way and recognize transcendency and the one who makes this all possible is actually tragic. So one thing I have learned, and that is that gratitude is the source of so many good things, and certainly joy. To the degree that I personally, if I may share this, feel happier these days than I ever have in my life, has more to do with the fact that I try to be aware and try to train myself to be conscious of the good things that I have. And I don't think I've shared this on this particular recording, but I remember, heating up my coffee in the microwave. And as I took it out of the microwave, I accidentally banged the side of the microwave, and some of the milk spilled in the microwave, and some of the milk spilled on the stove right below the microwave. And instead of saying, let's put this let's put it this more politely, yikes, saying, yes, this happened, but thank God I got a cup of coffee, and thank God I've got coffee, and I thank God I got a microwave, and focusing on that instead of the fact that I had to, and the fact that I have stuff to clean it up, and it's not that big a deal to clean it up, and to really focus on the positive sides rather than getting angry and frustrated over the fact that I sloppily, because I wasn't paying enough attention, knocked a cup of coffee on the microwave as I was taking it out. So, I mean, that's kind of a little perhaps a little microcosm of what I'm talking about in terms of how much we have to be thankful for and to fill that heart, to be able to fill your heart with that gratitude. It just allows you to, at least I'd say displace some of the anger. I would never say that I don't have angers. I think that's just, one shouldn't be, false to oneself. And in fact, being able to admit that you're angry is a very important thing, but then recognizing it and then trying to address that anger and sometimes I like to use the expression to dance with that anger rather than to fight it directly or to give into it. So these are part of all coming out of Garden of Eden, Garden of Eden. So,
Rabbi, I just want to point out you're talking about spilled milk,
yeah.
and it's and what you're saying is difficult, but absolutely possible when you learn how to think and slow down your reactions. But same thing with huge, horrible things, not just spilled milk.
I agree. That's why I was saying it was like a little microcosm, but it's part of a whole, trying to develop a whole attitude and being mindful about these things. Thanks. No, I really appreciate anything you want to add to this particular little sermon. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and we'll try and dive into the Torah Temimah here. So, okie doke. So we are reading, actually, this is what we're doing. So it's verse 10. The verse is ונהר יוצא מעדן, and a river issues from Eden, goes out from Eden, להשקות את הגן, to water the garden. ומשם ייפרד, and from there it splits up. והיה לה 4 ראשים, and it then splits up into 4 heads, right? 4 sources, I guess we could say. It's not the word. Rosh is not the word for source. Makor is the word for source, but just trying to keep it in the context, all right? So, ונהר יוצא מעדן, and a river issues from Eden. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, says Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, son of Levi, Kol ha'olam, the entire world. Now, he could mean the universe in a way, right? In other words, the physical world, the physical universe. Mitamtzid gan Eden, from the essence, right, of the Garden of Eden. Who shotet, drinks from this. So of course, this could be understood, and we are actually going to look at it more from a physical perspective in terms of rain and water. And we know that water and rain have deep symbolism, and that the fact that life would not be possible without it. And in Israel and in Mediterranean climates where basically rainfall is limited to the winter seasons, one becomes tremendously conscious of the need for water and how the balance of nature can be affected when there isn't enough water, or if there's too much, etc. Although it seems to me the only too much we have is the idea of flooding, but not that there's a quantity of rain that's necessarily insufficient, that's overabundant. Thank God we've had, I think, a good amount of rain this winter, and up in the Bay Area where I am located, it seems like we've actually had a very kind winter. Anyway, so it drinks from the essence of the Garden of Eden. Shene'emar, as it states, ונהר יוצא, and a river comes out of Eden, lahashkot et hagan, to water the garden. So are we saying, in a sense, that this world that we live in, right, both physical and spiritual, is a Garden of Eden? Certainly it was the way in which the Divine One created it to begin with. Let's take a look here. Piresh Rashi. Rashi explains, and this would be here, I believe, in Ta'anit, in the tractate Ta'anit, which is the tractate that deals with fast days. And in fact, if there's insufficient rainfall, the process by which the longer the rains are withheld, the more one sort of does, there's stages that one does towards fasting, and how much fasting and who's fasting, the leaders of the community, the general population, etc. It goes in degrees. Anyway, page 10, side A, right? So it's quite possible that that's what he's referring to. Let me take a look quickly here, because we do we have Rashi on this? Let's see quickly here. No, it's not here at all. There's no, at least it doesn't appear to be any Rashi right here on that. So I'm assuming that he's talking about the Rashi in the Gemara. So, Klomar, that is to say, Siman Ladavar, right? It is an indication of the matter. Shegan Eden Shote Me Geshamim. In other words, the indication of how true this statement is of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is that the Garden of Eden actually drinks from the waters of rainwater, tchila, to begin with. Dichtiv kra, as scripture states, ונהר יוצא מעדן, a river comes out of Eden, להשקות את הגן תחילה, to water the garden to begin with. Ad kan lashono, and that's the end of the quote. Now, admittedly, if you're having some difficulty with this, you're in good company, because on the one hand, it talks about a river, and on the other hand, it's talking about rainfall, and whether or not the only sense I can make out of this is that this river that's being mentioned in scripture is actually rain. That is the river that we're talking about. Now, I'm just sort of tucking that away. I'm not saying that is the answer. I'm just trying to make sense of this as we're going along, right? And the idea that rainfall, because it comes from heaven, is, in a sense, coming from Eden, right? Okay. Uvi'ur dvarav Maharsha, or Vi'er dvarav Maharsha. Maharsha is one of the major commentaries or commentators in the Gemara. He has, I believe his name is Shlomo Idols, is his name, and his commentary is a beautiful, profound commentary that combines both halachic analysis and also agadic analysis. So he talks about material such as this, which is more of a narrative thing, and sometimes he has these very penetrating and wonderful interpretations of this material. So anyway, the Maharsha goes on to say, Devadai ha'olam eno shote me'eden. So look at this, that it is clear, it is certain that the universe does not drink from Eden, Ela migan shel Eden, but from the Garden of Eden. Interesting, right? This just gets more perplexing in some ways, right? V'hu echad mishishim ve'Eden, and that is 1/60th part of Eden. So now, in trying to understand what he's saying, is that the Garden of Eden is something that actually comprises the universe, right? In other words, the universe exists in the Garden of Eden, and the Garden of Eden exists, it is, again, it is 1/60th part of Eden itself. So that there are these various levels of reality in trying to puzzle this out, that are dependent on one another, that the one that's on a lower level is dependent on the one on the higher level. So going on, he says, yes, David, go ahead, a good place.
Where did he get the 1/60th?
We're going to get to that. You'll see.
Okay.
You'll see.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, 1/60th is a It's a sort of a significant proportion, okay? Good question, but let's see if I think he's going to explain it.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see. Hopefully you will. Look and see what we wrote in the previous commentary. So let's take a quick look at this, and this may be helpful to us. I'll look back. So let's see what this is going at. Okay, so the previous commentary, Vayasem Sham, he placed it there, Sham Bagan. Okay, so this is the previous commentary, which we did, right? Which is to identify the Garden of Eden with Eden, and it says, no, it is not that. And we were clear that, right, that that the garden was one thing, and Eden was another thing, right? That was what it was there. Now I'm looking to see. Right. Remember, we talked about a room in a house as opposed to a house in a city, and that the Garden of Eden could be compared to a house in a city and not a room in a house. Right. That's sort of what I remember the most significant element of that. So let's keep going with this now. Okay. Uvahaikra, and in this particular scriptural verse, Demaite Yotze Me'eden Ketiv, and in that, I think he's talking about in that previous script commentary anyway, but in this verse, he brings that part of the verse that it says Yotze Me'eden, goes out of Eden. It states explicitly, goes out of Eden. So the garden is part of Eden. Ella lesiman ba'alma, right? However, as simply an indication, right? Maitele mehaikra, he proves from this particular verse, Shegan shel Eden, that the Garden of Eden, shoter, drinks megeshamim tchila, right? That it drinks the waters, the rain waters to begin with. Umefaresh beGemara, and here in the Gemara it explains, Me tamtzit beit kor shote tarkav. So here, David, he is trying to explain. He says the essence, in other words, the essential water, the water essence of a beit kor. That's a volume. Down here at the bottom, I have a beit kor. A beit kor, right, is a space for sowing a core of seed. And here above, I've got the amounts of a core, right? So take a look. A letek, right? How many leteks, etc. That we start off with a log, right? Which is 6 eggs. 4 log is 24 eggs, which is a kav, and then 6 times 24, right, is a se'ah, and then 3 se'ah, 3 se'ahs is 3 times that amount, and then he stops. This is what I just copied this from a place where they gave amounts, right? Is an ephah. So 5 times 432 is an letek, and 2 times 5 times 4,000, right? 320 is a core and a beit core. Now here we go. It's the space. These are areas, okay? So there's a core, that's that. But a beit core is a space for sowing a core of seed, okay? Well, what is 30 se'ah in volumes? That's if you do all the multiplications here. There's the se'ah. The area need is approximately 1.73, okay, so that amount of acres, or about 23,000 square millimeters in area, or meters, sorry, 23,000 square meters in area. So what he's saying here, to try and see if I can make sense of this, okay, is that that in a sense, a tarkav, that area, okay, is, and that's tarkav, two or three kavs, an area, okay. Tarkav is an amount of seed. In other words, the area of a beit core, right, requires a tarkav of seed in order to be planted. Klomar, clay shemashkin meimav, okay, beit core, right, a vessel, right, shemashkim b'meimav, with which one waters with waters with the water contained in it, beit core, Yecholin lahashkot b'tamsito. If we take the essence of it, we can then water a field. Sadeh shiur zriat tarkav, the field that requires a tarkav of seed to plant it. Shehu echad mishishim b'beit core, which is exactly 1/60th of a beit core. So again, when it says tamsito, as I said, the word tamsit means an essence of it. In other words, I imagine it means a very concentrated part of it. V'hachi nami olam echad, right? So this here too, one universe, mishishim began Eden. So now we get again the idea of 1/60th of the Garden of Eden. V'dai lo betamsita ananim, and there is enough for the universe here, betamsit ha'ananim, with the essence of the clouds, hamashkin et hagan, which water the garden. Began lifnei kol ha'olam, right? Kulo be'e'ke'eden lagan, and the garden in the presence of the entire universe, alam kulo ke'eden lagan, is like Eden to the garden. So just as the world is to the garden, Eden is to the garden. Say that one more time. Just as the universe is dependent on the garden for its water supply, so the garden itself is dependent on Eden for its water supply. And now we have at least some idea of how you get that 1/60th part. And the other thing I would add is that clearly the clouds, right, when you look at a cloud, it's made up of tiny little water droplets. You look at the area of a cloud, right, or the volume of a cloud, and I'm sure it's probably, at least just in terms of looking at it like that, without looking at it metaphorically or literally, is 1/60th. In other words, there's a tiny amount of water that actually comes out of a large volume of cloud because of it being water droplets. If you have any comments, I would appreciate that. As I said, this is challenging stuff to work with. David.
So wait a minute. I think you just said the universe is dependent on the garden, and the garden is dependent on Eden, or right?
Correct.
Is that all right? So does that mean that essentially? I mean, that almost makes Eden sound like a celestial body as opposed to, something physical, because if the universe is depending on it, then that means it's, that's so that seems to be a contradiction, but maybe not. So,
Okay.
am I missing? Maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
No, I'm comfortable, very comfortable with what you're saying. And what I think the point that's missing is to recognize how ultimately even physical matter depends ultimately on spiritual matter. In other words, in some ways, this is a sophisticated way of trying to describe a process of creation.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, thank you.
So, think in terms of, I guess we can think in terms of black holes and its relationship to space, and in trying to understand what is an atom after all, right? My understanding about a black hole is saying that whatever is physical in an atom, which is a tiny, tiny part of the actual volume of an atom, if one can talk about the volume of an atom, basically is this, there's no more volume. That a black hole basically is nothing more than, let's say, the mass, the actual physical mass of the atom. So let's get some clarification. I see, Lauren, you have your hand up, and I understand someone else does as well. Do you want me to stop the share for a
The
second?
other person is David.
Oh, okay, David. David, do you need to follow up then?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was just wondering if this is making me consider Eden, because I just associate Eden as being one giant garden or whatever, but even though it does say Garden of Eden, but is it related to the word witness?
I don't think so. I think the nun is an important part of that root. The word, just for those who are not so familiar with Hebrew, the word for witness is aid, okay? But la'aden is I think it's a completely different word, and it has to do with that. There was another thought I had. So what I personally feel and what I'm learning from our study today is just totally, again, I think it's what you said when you sort of think of the Garden of Eden more as this, you think of a garden and like that. And what this is doing is this is just blowing that out and going into a level of understanding of metaphorically of this in a very powerful kind of way, in talking about the nature of creation, both from its physical and its relationship to its spiritual existence, right? That level of existence of the world that is sort of this on the spiritual level, and saying, I know that commonly we look at the physical world, right, as being reality. And what this, I feel, is doing, rightly or wrongly, it's all part of a process and a journey, is seeing the world in its relationship to the non-physical elements of it, and looking at the dependency of the physical world on the non-physical and on the spiritual. So, David, I'm very comfortable with what you were saying, and I think this is actually very interesting and something to meditate on. And it looks to me like this is it for this morning. So I will stop the recording and hope that those of you who have watched this on YouTube or on Facebook have found food for thought, and that you'll enjoy thinking about it until next Sunday when we pick this up again. Thank you.